So I like to tell folks that I am just the most ordinary suburban dad that you could picture. Like the guy in the New Balances mowing the yard in cargo shorts. Like that's me. I'm that Progressive commercial or whatever insurance commercial you can think of. That's kind of me. And not in a bad way, but just like how I grew up and who I am as a person. And I entered that kind of regular, normal, ordinary guy state on October 2019, as I stepped at the starting line of the Twin Cities 10-mile race. So in Minnesota, there's a couple exciting things that happen here. And one of those things is the Twin Cities Marathon and the Twin Cities 10-mile, which is always the first weekend in October. And it's kind of the best time for running here in Minneapolis because it's warm enough to be bearable, but really cool. So you get a nice time. And so on that given day, I laced up my shoes like any other runner and casual runner and started off on the race. And tens of thousands of other runners and I headed off, and things were going really well. So kind of started the race in downtown Minneapolis, and you make your way all the way to downtown St. Paul. And for me, kind of the long story made short is that I never made it to the finish line that day. I don't have much memory of the day, so a lot of this is what I share with folks is things I've pieced together and things that have been told to me over time. But as I got towards mile 8, I took 2 huge kind of gasps of air and I collapsed, just like out of the blue. Healthy guy, 25 years old, 3 months away from his wedding day, kind of like this, storybook horror movie type of situation. And I just collapsed very awkwardly, randomly. I didn't trip over anything. It was in the middle of the street. And people quickly realized that something was very wrong with me. So they came, other runners, there were some race volunteers, even some spectators who were at the race quickly came, flipped me over, and to make it short, just gave me CPR for 10 to 15 minutes, kind of like what you would see on Grey's Anatomy or some of these TV shows, like this really intense, physically, emotionally intense moment. And these people worked together as strangers and kept me alive for about 10 minutes until an AED arrived on the scene, shocked my heart back into rhythm, and rushed me off to the hospital. So I kind of started off as this ordinary suburban guy and ended the day as this mystery man. And then, as we'll talk about later, kind of revealed more about my story, more about who I was, and then use it as a platform to share a bigger message.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I was in particular interested in the memory aspect. So you referenced not having a lot from the day. Is it like like if you really stretch back, and I'm sure you've spent a ton of time thinking on it, and our minds are weird how they might fill in stories based on how other people are saying, but is it like a hard cutoff for you where it's like, boy, this time on, just nothing?
Great question. So, yes, I have a hard cut after mile 1, and I don't have anything
Wow.
else after. So, and I don't even know. So for me, mile 1, when you start in downtown, I have vivid memories of standing downtown and looking at, the Viking stadiums in the background and all these skyscrapers. And I have kind of these vivid memories of running downtown as the sun is rising, it's glistening off of the skyscrapers, kind of one of those unique experiences. And then right as I got around mile 1, I saw my family. So my wife was there, or my fiance, and then my parents. And I don't know if that memory just cemented in my head and there was nothing that was going to take that memory away,
Yeah.
but that's the last memory I have, is seeing them. And then I have some very fuzzy in and out things of being in the hospital. But it really took me kind of like 3 full days to be like almost become conscious again. And granted, I was awake for two of those days, and I was cracking jokes and being Mr. Funny and very
But no memory.
emotional and all that stuff. But yeah, no memory of it. And so I don't know if it's just as a believer, I don't know if God's protecting me, plus maybe obviously having a concussion. And then I was in a medically induced coma afterwards. So I'm sure there's some medical explanations as well as to why I don't have it. But I really do hold on to that one memory with my family. And who knows, maybe I'll see more over time, or if I run it more times in the future, I'll kind of get some things back in the
Yeah.
memory. But
Yeah.
so far, that's the one that I have, and I'm thankful for it.
Wow. And was there an actual exchange with your family, or was it you on the course, seeing them in the crowd, and just like a wave or acknowledgement or something like that?
Yeah, so I was running, it's kind of in downtown Minneapolis. took a right turn, and then you're about to take a left turn. And as I'm turning left, I see them out of the corner of my eye, and I run across the street, give them a hug, give my wife a kiss on the cheek, and hit the road. So,
Wow.
I have video of it too, so I think that might also help me. I have video
Hmm.
from their point of view, and that's one that I often kind of bring up is like, oh man, you never really know what's coming ahead of you. You never really know what's happening, 7 miles later in your life,
Right.
metaphorically speaking. Upright, happy, smiling, healthy, and then to think in less than an hour, I was face down, losing breath, losing heartbeat, and on the edge of life or death.
Now, when did your family? I'm assuming your family wasn't standing there at mile 8. I'm wondering what their experience is like, or was like, and what they've told you. How did they find out? When did they get to you? Like, how did you all kind of come back together, and how did they enter back into the scene?
Yeah, great question. So, as I'm doing kind of my things happening at mile 8, I had just seen my family at mile 7. So, when you do
Wow.
these races, you typically say, hey, let's meet here, let's meet
Yep.
there. And you kind of have a marked out plan because as a runner, you're not checking your phone, you're not going to tell people where you are. And with the technology, usually you can track your runners. So you can say, oh, let's meet him at this block, or if we cut across this road, we can see him twice here, or whatever it is. So we had one of those plans, and the plan was to see them at mile 7 and then again at mile 10. So we kind of did every 3 miles or so. We kind of had this thing set up. So I saw at mile 7, and as they were heading down to the finish line at mile 10, which is tens of thousands of people, chaotic,
Hmm.
traffic everywhere, they're trying to figure out where they are. I'm collapsed and almost dying. So they have no idea about it. They're living life on their own, doing their own thing, and then for some reason, I don't know what the tracker, some situation was happening where it actually showed that I was getting close to the finish line and had finished. Something about it was messed up. So my wife was really um, expecting to see me. She was like, "Well, the tracker says he's here, but I'm calling him and he won't answer and he won't answer and he won't answer." And then she gets a call from an unmarked number, like a *69 type number. And she's like, "Well, this is weird." And for some reason, she answers it, which she typically wouldn't. But I think just because of the situation she was in, she felt the nudge to answer her phone. And then there was a police officer from the St. Paul Police Department saying, "Hey, something happens to Tyler, and I can't tell you about it specifically because of HIPAA, but I know he's in the hospital, and I'm going to pick you up at the state capitol." So the state capitol is where the race finishes. So they go up the state capitol steps, meet the police officer, and they ride to the hospital. So they're kind of in this state of what happened, and my family is usually more laid back. So I think they're kind of thinking, maybe he twisted his ankle, or maybe he broke his leg, or concussion. Like I think they even maybe cracked a few jokes about it or something like that because they had no idea, no idea.
Yeah. The
Uh,
officer didn't divulge any information.
no, no, no. So I think that's protocol, which we appreciated her
Right. Yeah.
following. But they got to the hospital and kind of like a bad movie. Doctor says this is what happened to Tyler, and we don't know what's going to happen to him, and he's in a coma. Thank you for coming to the hospital. It's like that's what they had to sit with. And so um, we can get more into that, but they certainly have a lot to share in their story on their side of things
Yeah.
about
Yeah. And
that.
I did want to recognize that you're potentially speaking on someone else's behalf, or of their experience. But I'm wondering, in the aftermath, the days, weeks, months, and years now, have you all as a group kind of circled back to that and just talked through what those moments were like for them?
Yeah, we definitely have hashed it out over the years. Fortunately, so to maybe kind of add some more context to it of not being married. So my wife and I, we were engaged, which means a lot to us. We weren't living together or anything. So there was this kind of clear line in our eyes where it was like I'm a part of kind of my parents' family. And then when I get married, we become a family, and there's kind of some symbolism there. But when you're engaged, you're kind of in this red area or this gray area of like, well, I make decisions with her, but I also kind of report to them. And so there's kind of some of those things happening. And in the hospital, it was this doctor, and then my parents and my fiance Amy. And the doctor asked them, who's the one point of contact? Like, who is the person that's going to be the tip of the spear that I talk to? And way they describe it was kind of this critical moment where Amy steps up and says, "That's me. I'll be the one who goes into it." And I think as someone who is unconscious and unaware of that stuff, to then hear that your fiance and now your wife was willing to kind of stand in the gap for you before you said I do, before you said till death do us part, and in sickness and health and rich and poor. I mean, that moment really sticks out to me and my parents as something that was critically important for setting the tone for the rest of that experience. And throughout it, I think there was some moments where it was, who's the decision maker, and he's unconscious, or he's conscious, but he's not really here. And how do you kind of work through some of that stuff? And I think there were a few moments of stress and strain, but over the years, there's never been hard feelings. And every once in a while, things will kind of pop up and we'll talk about it as a group. And I feel pretty honored that my parents were so engaged and Amy was so engaged, and they kind of let each other play their roles in a time and an experience that no one prepares you for as a young adult or even as a parent, and figuring that stuff out.
Yeah. Oh, I can just say, different experience, but I know that each person really understanding their role in a situation like this. There's, if you don't have that on top of all the hardship that you're navigating, you also have confusion. And especially, I can't even imagine as well with you in a medically. So you came to the hospital, and I mean, it was face on concrete. So were you knocked out? Um, and then they put you in a medically induced coma. I guess how how do they differentiate that? This might be a weird question, but where do you go from like Tyler got knocked out by the pavement to he is now in a medically induced coma?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know the official answer, but here's how I would translate it was my body did something and it shut down basically.
Hmm.
And then it revved back up with the AED and everything like that. They gave me some intentional medication, and then they were putting ice on my body, like all over my body to cool me down. So they were taking intentional actions to put me in this coma. And the thought was that it was going to protect my brain, actually. So my heart fired back up, but there was some stuff with my brain that they were concerned about, because that's kind of the two most, well, I don't want to say most important, but they're two very critical important components of your body. And once they had my heart figured out, they went into the brain preservation mode, because most people in my situation have brain damage. Just like about 50% of out of hospital cardiac arrest survivors have some type of brain damage
And
afterwards.
that's not just from the impact. I would assume that is loss of blood flow as
Correct.
well. Okay.
Oxygen and all that stuff.
Wow.
So
And staying with that experience that your memory is gone for, was have your parents or your now wife informed you of a moment where they grew in confidence that you were going to pull through?
mm, yeah, so the one moment that Amy consistently talks about is so I have this incident, I'm in the rest of the hospital, they're brought to the hospital, they're in the waiting room, they're calling people, and people are coming and people are praying and people are bringing food, and it's like this whole kind of conglomeration of people knowing is growing, and she's having these consults with the doctor every so often, telling him what's going to happen. So they told her, hey, we're putting him in this coma and we don't really know when he's going to wake up. I don't know what the protocol is for me to come back, but there's kind of a natural way to do it. And they said, like, it's going to be 24 hours, like at least at a minimum. Um, and then by the end of the night, I was awake and I was alert, and I was like talking and aware of things, from like, at least they could see I was aware. And that was kind of the first time that I think she was like, okay, like there's something happening here with him, with God, with all this stuff happening, where it's not going to be one of those normal experiences. And she was very encouraged by the fact that I was able to come out of it. And one of the doctors, before I woke up, kind of said something like, he's in there and he's fighting. And just that like little word about it, some of those little things, and then to see me kind of come out of it, I think gave them a lot of confidence in who I was. And then as I grew more conscious and more aware, I kind of came into the room as this happy-go-lucky guy, and really kind of bringing the glue together, which is kind of a normal thing for me to do, whether it's at work or at home. And I think that really brought all the confidence that they needed, and has really kind of catapulted us forward from that point on.
Wow. Um, so sticking, kind of concluding this memory sort of thread, what did you fade back into consciousness, or do you distinctly remember a moment where it's like, oh, I can reflect back and mark that as the moment I came back?
You know, it's a little bit of both. So sometimes if I'll see photos or people will be talking, there's like one situation with my cousin that I really, really, really love that he came and saw me, and I like remember him kind of giving me a hug. And then I remember signing some paperwork, which was kind of an odd thing because I was awake and conscious. So I was the one to sign the paperwork versus someone else doing it. So there was kind of an incident there that I remember signing paperwork, but being super confused as to like what I was doing. And then I remember I was actually transferred from one hospital to another. I remember taking this hospital or this ambulance ride. It was kind of a far ride. And then the next morning I was like normal. So I feel like for 2 days, there's kind of these like interesting, odd memories. And then on like the third day, I woke up and I was like, okay, I know everything that happened to me. I am aware of all the stuff that we kind of just did. And I'm like ready to go forward. And it was just this weird, I don't even know if you call it an experience or situation where all of a sudden I kind of was there and ready to go and was looking forward to whatever was next for us.